This is Truth Frequency Radio.
The wicked ones obviously under heavy Masonic influence.
When you finally boil it all down, magic is imagination. We are moving into an age of manifestation. Things become actually less material, more ethereal. The golden dawn is when we awaken to this new station of life. What you think becomes real quicker. Regain our imagination, regain our inner child, and let that inner child out.
My name is Frank Castle, founding member of the music group Heislick and New York City Neo-Shaman. After a serious injury sidelined my career in 2013, I decided to set out on an adventure to search for myself with the help of the plant medicine Ayahuasca. What I discovered waiting for me was something I could have never prepared for. It was time for me to become something more, someone more. It was time I became fearless. Shine as my heart beats a rhythm with space and time. When the light starts to shine inside your third eye, you awake to the knowledge that you never die.
What is up, everyone? It's Saturday night, and I'm your Sorcerer Supreme here on TruthFrequencyRadio.com. Everyone's smiling at me. I am so happy to be back with everyone. Sitting off to my side right here, my ethereal translator, Paula Milo, is here.
Hey, everyone.
My best bud is here as well. Josh, how you doing?
Hey, guys.
And we have a special guest host tonight, Ra, who you're probably just listening to the show right before mine, because if you weren't, you should be tuning into it. It's Exploring the Car with Ra. Ra, how you doing?
Hey, what's up, Frank? How's it going? Paula, everybody, how's it going?
Hey, how you doing?
Hey, Rob, how's it going, man?
Rob, I am so excited to have you on tonight. I know you jumped in a few weeks ago and did a half hour with us, but I really, really went through some weird stuff that actually 100% had to do with you. You set it off, everything in motion.
Right.
I wanted to just be like, what did he do to me? But I had a Mandela effect with you. So weird, dude. You did... Okay, I wrote this down. The musician offered a deal with the devil on the Leak project, yes?
Yeah.
Okay, now that was one hell of an experience, yes?
Yeah.
Okay. I saw that video somewhere 4 to 5 years ago. That video saved me when I first met Chris. I was going on tour with the Indie Boom 2014.
Oh my God, I'm getting the chills, dude.
Right? And he woke me up during that trip. I broke my back and neck, so I got shot up so I could go on the tour, and I went to Chris a week early. And he said, don't worry, don't take anything. We're going to work this out.
I don't know why I sent it to you, too. I needed to send it to you for some reason.
No, listen, this gets out of control.
And all my other shows from the Leak project, I did 7 other shows. They're all gone now.
Yeah, all right, this blew my mind. All right, so I go on the tour. After doing 5 days of DMT, ayahuasca, I'm awoke. I've been on stage now for a month with these guys. In the end, they brought me in the back and discussed what the chambers were, and they were explaining all this mystical stuff to me. And I was like, yo, they were telling me that a demonic entity, a being, somehow with something to do with Saturn, was in control of the hip-hop industry, the music industry in general, and that they had to bring out their own character to fight this off so they could make their way because they were being closed off from this industry. They were being bottlenecked. So then I was like, whoa, so this stuff is real.
Yeah, well, it does. Kronos, the baby eater, runs it. Yeah.
Okay, so I come home, and I'm trying to explain my experience to people around me. And naturally, I'm the crazy one, right? So I search the internet for a show. Now, at that time, I was doing hundreds of shows, like radio shows, all different 9/11 conspiracies, ghosts, all kinds of weird stuff. And your video came up, and I was like, what poor lighting in the video? Like, that's what drew me to it, was the colors in the video. So I watched your video. It was 36 minutes long. I remembered everything about it, right? And I thought I knew Rex. Like, I literally knew I was going to be on his show, right? But I was like, when did he book me? This was back then. And I'm like, wait a second. I know Chris. I know this guy. I know this guy. I was making all the connections. And I'm like, I know Rex. Rex, I'm definitely going to be on. And then I was watching you discuss exactly stuff that was related to everything happening. And I'm going to the people around me. Look, this guy right here. I didn't even know your name. I was just going, he knows. He's telling his story, but it's his version. It's his thing. And they were like, yeah, whatever. Right. So I watched it about 6-7 times because it blew my mind. There's more in the story with the portals and the thing that happened in the park.
Yeah.
So I look at the date when I look at the video the other day. I wrote you the day it happened, right? So this was like a week ago, a week and a half ago. I go, oh, Paula, watch this video. This is the guy that I used to reference to 4 or 5 years ago. I didn't know his name. I didn't know it was Ra. So this is awesome. Look how the synchronicity is. And then I looked at the date the video was made. And I'm like,
Yeah, we just did it like 7 months ago, 8 months ago, something.
February.
Yeah.
And I go, what are you talking about? That's impossible. I was with Chris and I came home from the tour. It's the first thing I saw when I looked it up.
Well, there's a weird Mandela effect going on, which is me and Rex too. We don't really talk to each other anymore. And I did like 9 or 7 shows with him, and like 7 of them just you can't find anymore. They like fell off the even like he doesn't have them or whatever. And the ones that did get saved, they like went viral. They're like really. Like people have gone crazy over those videos, watching them a lot, sending me emails. I got hundreds of emails from those videos, but there's a weird Mandela effect just between me and Rex too. It's like we don't even know each other anymore. So it's kind of weird. It's like it happened on another timeline.
He was already popular when I was watching him. I was like, oh, it's Rex. Like, this is my boy Rex. He hasn't been out that long.
No, Rex has been out for like a year or two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If this is what's freaking me out, I'm like,
In
he's
this
already
timeline.
popular. Like, I know this guy. Like, everyone runs to the Leak Project for information. But then I didn't remember the name. And when I saw the video, I go, oh, that's what it's called. And then I went, wait a second. That's Ra?
Yeah, like I played music on his show before and all types of stuff. Like I did about 7 interviews in over a course of like 3 months with him. And now like there's only 1 or 2 that exist.
So what do you think's happening?
I think there's some kind of bleed through of timelines taking place. I don't know exactly. I don't have all the answers, but I catch little glimpses here and there of certain things, and I definitely think there's some kind of bleed through happening. It's also part of this D-Wave technology is to blend realities and to blend timelines, and I feel that it's not only that's what's happening, but it's been invaded by some kind of virus or alchemical process, whatever you want to call what happened. What some people call what the Orion Wars are, or the cosmic wars, or even if you take the Bible, it's about Genesis, it's about genetics, it's about a war over DNA. So I think over time, this war over DNA, what had happened was there was some kind of, and I'll tell you why I feel this. There's some kind of alchemical process, either a virus or deliberately done through some kind of alchemy. There was some sort of black stone or black meteorite that came from Aldebaran, that area, or whatever Aldebaran is, whether it's within our own consciousness and within an interdimensional, or it's actually light years away. I'm not sure, because I think the planets and the stars are not what we think. It's actually within our own consciousness and within other realities and other dimensions. It's not actually coming from light years away. It's actually coming through other dimensions, and that's what I think other planets are, and other dimensions are actually, and then the stars are actually this grid work that's keeping us in this pattern, is keeping us in this grid. I feel that there was a stone or some kind of meteorite that came from this Aldebaran star system, and it was mixed with some kind of DNA, some kind of genetic material, and through that, some kind of virus broke out. And it's this primordial black gray ooze, this goo that self-replicates and can terraform and can infiltrate and interweave with technology and genetic material. And it interweaved with this D-Wave technology and it within DNA, and it's taking over our realities, because it's trying to blend all of the realities and the timelines to make it one singular timeline where it can thrive, where it can have spiritual bliss. Not for us to have spiritual bliss, but for it to have spiritual bliss. So it's like this outside intelligence that's really trying to terraform our world and terraform our timelines. It's for it to have this one timeline where it can be, thrive and can be God and be one with the earth. And I think it's been terraforming worlds from the jump, and it's part of what Chris and Sherry are calling AI, and part of what everybody has called different things through time, that I think that it's infecting our world and our timelines. And that's why there's this bleed through of who we are. Because listen, Frank, I think when each one of us are born, we had chose to come here, and now we're coming here basically with amnesia because this plane has been hijacked, right? So when we're born, I feel we have this blueprint that's laid out for us, all these spiritual timelines where we can go down, and we get polarized to go down towards these different timelines throughout different incarnations until we can achieve and remember who we really are, and I feel that these timelines are being manipulated. And, you're going to see a lot of things, like even books have different words in it than they had before. Different things are going to seem different. Even pictures from your relatives, they're going to look different than they had before. You're going to be like, wow, is this person really in this picture? It's because things our timelines are being, converged, somehow, I think. And I don't, like I said, I don't have all the answers, but I think I'm on the right track with that. And I feel that, blood rituals, certain kind of rituals, certain kind of smells, blood, all this kind of thing can actually pull things in from other dimensions, and they can get reanimated in this physical plane through blood sacrifice, through certain rituals. And I can explain more in a little while, but I'm interested to hear your response. I know I've been talking for a while.
All right, there's multiple things going on here. I just want to say this really quick. I smoked DMT one night and sat outside and it just took a giant monster hit. And the first thing that occurred is a being, and he had like a hair bun thing going on with a robe. He's like, "What are you doing?" And I go, "I want to see the stars. I just wanted to look at the stars," and like under DMT. And he's like, "What's wrong with you?" And then my inner guy answered, "I am the stars." And I was like, "Wait, what? Who said that?" And then they were like, you are it. And I had like one of those freaky moments. Now, I wrote these lyrics 6 years ago. The stars aren't what they are. They are, what does it say? They are
what they pretend we see.
They are what we pretend we see. So it's coming out. It's like bleeding through in our creativity.
I like that.
Yeah.
Well, it's the mirror thing, right? Like the whole thing's a mirror. So you're just like, or the fractal, or which angle or which frequency are you viewing it from, which can become a little tripped out and very confusing if you're still trying to process the allular consciousness through the ego filter,
Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, cool.
All right, sorry. No, that's awesome. We had multiple timeline things. Once again, I'm bringing Chris into it. When I was going on that tour, I wasn't going to see Chris at first. I couldn't get a room anywhere. There were this strip of hotels. They were being advertised, and the girl I was dating at the time was a travel agent, and she's like, she goes, "I've been calling these places for 2 weeks. Now there's 2 weeks left. We can't get you a place." So when I got out there, Chris was like, "I'll explain to you what's going on here." Right at the base of the mountain, right? It was just like a mile from his house. There was this Denny's. Right there across the street was all these places. I'm like, "Dude, it looks like there's rooms everywhere. Like these places aren't packed. What's going on here?" He goes, "Yeah, those weren't here like a month ago." So I'm like, "Yeah, right, dude. Come on." And he's like, "No, I'm serious." So we go into Denny's, and the lady behind the counter hears us talking and goes, "No, here's the paper." And she breaks the paper out. They have it hanging on the wall in the place about there was nothing there a month ago. It was just a giant, long side access road with nothing, right? And it was like that for years. And then they showed up at work, and there were hotels, and they were working and functioning.
Whoa.
And it was in the newspapers. It talked about it on the radio, and they said the local townspeople were saying that this was like this, but people couldn't remember it.
Oh, like it just appeared like one day.
Yeah. And Chris is like, "That's why we told you have to stay with us. We had to explain this and show it to you." And I'm like, Yeah, I don't know. That's crazy, dude.
But this is similar. Okay, I don't know if you guys both remember, but from doing research for a long time, there's weird anomalies that appear on the internet sometimes. And I think there was the thing in, I don't know which country, in China or Japan, where they were having these cities appear in the sky, and people were taking photos of it.
Yeah,
You
like
guys
these
know what I'm talking
phantom
about?
cities.
Yeah,
that
like
look
all of a sudden there
really
was just a
old and
city, and
Gothic looking too.
yeah, and everybody was seeing them, and they were like, and I don't know if
I think that was blue beam, some kind of blue beam
Yeah, I
technology,
felt that.
possibly. Yeah, it could have been
who
some
knows?
kind of like holographic,
Overlay image, right?
Yeah,
Well, this is where it gets weird, right? Because then the whole point, I think, and you were referring to this earlier, Raw, is like the
Could be from another
confusion
time.
of the realities, right? Like where you don't know if you're actually seeing a bleed through of another dimension or actually somebody's programming something within the dimension because we've just been kept out of the idea of certain technology and it seems mystical,
yeah. Seems like magic. Yeah.
Which is that ancient thing. Anything you don't, it's like taking the computer to the caveman. It's like doesn't make sense if you don't have a vocabulary to compute,
So one of the things, Ra, as a shaman, I was shown that stone. There was.
Oh yeah, that's the part I didn't explain. The reason why, not to cut you off, Frank, but the reason why that stone, why I think it was from Aldebaran and all that I explained was, when I was hearing about the black goo several years ago and all this programmable matter and this primordial ooze that can self-replicate and all this stuff, I was asking my higher self or whatever you want to call it in meditation. And before I went to sleep at night, I was like, I really want an answer. What is this black goo? What is it and where is it from? So I was given this vision, this like dream vision. And it's like I had to put it together like it was charades. That's basically what I see sometimes. It's like I can see like in a dull neon there the outline of certain images, people, places, symbols. If I close my eyes sometimes out of the black, I will see like a holographic type of environment where it's the best way to describe it, it's a dull neon and it's transparent, but you can see the outline of everything. And I got to put it together like charades almost. And it's just like a knowing. And so I was shown the head of a bull with the one red eye. And that's Aldebaran. That's the eye of Taurus. And I saw this black stone coming from the sky and hitting the red bull, and this black ooze was dripping out of the bull's face and dripping on planets and dripping on people and then replicating them, and all this stuff was taking place. And then I saw this winged creature, and he like spread over it. And what my impression was is that through this somehow the collection of DNA, or maybe through battle, blood was shed, and this stone came from the sky, and it intermingled and interwove with DNA somehow, either deliberately by this creature through some kind of alchemy, or through some kind of, like I said, somehow the DNA mixed with this black stone, and it made this ooze, this black ooze that is like a primordial ooze that can like infiltrate other genetic material and technology. And I think that's what's taken over certain things and people. And I think it's connected to this being Baal and the Book of the Giants, where this King Og, and I think these giants are actually getting pulled in our dimension through certain DNA, and they can find the DNA through their heightened sense of abilities. And I think that's where that nursery rhyme comes from. Fee, fi, fo, fum, I smell the blood of an Englishman. I think these giants, it's not just a nursery rhyme. They can actually smell the DNA of their ancestors, smell the genetic material, and probably that fee, fi, fo, fum thing was actually an incantation or a personal mantra to keep that heightened sense of ability active, where he can smell the DNA and the genetics in someone and seek them out.
I agree with that. I
Yeah,
agree.
yeah. Paul is a big fan of the DNA, and so am I. One of the things I was shown was when a meteor or a rock hit, and that goo came out and interacted with it. We have our own here, like almost like oil or whatever, and it interacted with that and then overlaid it, right, and started interacting different, mimicking it all of a sudden.
Yeah, yeah.
And then people travel now to this black stone where they kiss it.
Mecca. Yep.
All right.
And then you got John D, who was talking into a black stone and talking to, spirits and angels, and you even got Mecca, and it's said that Mecca with the praying mantis, that it always bows to Mecca before when it prays in rituals. And the Black Stone is, even the lords of the Black Stone were connected to the Nazis and the Vril Society, and Black Stone worship goes deep, Frank.
Right. So I use ayahuasca as a breakthrough method. I was sitting in the room. You all right? I was sitting in the room, and it was the Taurus of Gaia, and all the lights were on, and you can see the hologram walls. It was like a Taurus, so it was moving. It was the donut, and it was moving in on itself, making it infinite. And they were like, look, infinite frames to look at, to keep infinite consciousness moving, keeping it occupied on focus. And I'm sitting there going, yeah, but everything's off. I'm just sitting in the room. And I turned around, and this thing formed into my cat, and the girl that I was there with, that I went under, she was in the room with me. We were experiencing this together. Her boyfriend. So it just transformed into that. And I looked, and I was like, Roxy the cat? And she was like, Zed the boyfriend? And I'm like, wait a second, what the hell was that? And I turned to look at her, and the tentacles came out. It looked like goo, right? But or it looked like liquid that was alive through the air. But when it got very close to me, it touched me, right? And I looked. I knew that it was now interfering in my focus and my fractals. But when I really looked in on it, it was they looked like nanites or nanobots. This was the only word I would have to, like a swarm of these things traveling through this liquid. And I was like, oh, would you look at that? These are tentacles coming out of that thing. And then when I turned again, it went back to that same figure, the cat and the boyfriend look, and then eyes that were red flashed. And it just sat there like an obelisk. And I kept thinking, what's an obelisk? My cell phone looks like an obelisk. 2001 Space Odyssey obelisk. The Black Stone, right? And then I'm like, wait a second. You're all telling me this thing got loose inside of this? Right, like where we're sitting in a room, sending our focus, our consciousness into whatever simulation to do whatever it is we're doing in whatever university we're in. This thing then touches us inside of that room and infects all around it. And now it's bleeding through just more and more and more. And as we're waking up, Chris had an interesting statement that the hologram has to shift now, because as we wake up, it has to blend the realities, because the machine is working overtime, right? So now it's working 20 times harder on Ra, 20 times harder on Frank, 20 times harder on Josh. So as we're just lifting up, it's got to shut down some of those background timelines and blend it back in, because you can't have this all running, because it's trying to control it. Perhaps it's an interesting theory. What
go ahead.
I was going to say, what do you think? What do you think about that?
Yeah, no, it's an interesting theory, I mean, none of us can say for sure, and we don't all have all the answers, but like when you have certain experiences and your whole body responds to it, and you just know that people don't have to tell you, you don't need proof, you just know that you're on the right track and there's something to it. I don't think you really need someone else's confirmation. You already know it's real for you. And it's interesting because even this time of year, it's said that like it's an ancient belief that the dead are attracted to the blood and can be temporarily reanimated through offerings of the blood. And at this time of year, with being the eve of November that just passed, and my lineage, they called it Shadowfest. It's actually, this is called the blood moon that we have up right now, the hawk moon, and it's a time when a lot of people are trying to bring certain things from other dimensions through offerings and through rituals. And I think not only does the offering of blood bring things into this dimension, it's also smells and other things can pull other entities in to this dimension as well as us. I think it's the way to time travel, through offerings of blood and smells and things like that. If you take a smell from the past, and I'll tell you, I'll share an experience with you in a minute too, if you want. If you take a smell from a past of your ancestors, like say there was a ritual, and the smell of that ritual, the burning of the incense, what took place at that time, your brain can lock onto the vibration of that moment, that place, and that space, and then you're instantly there. You can instantly time travel to that location if you can lock onto the vibration of that moment. And I think that's what is happening is that somehow we're tapping into ancestral memories, and we're tapping into certain things from other timelines, from what's embedded in our ancestry, in our genetic memory. And if you can lock onto it, you can be there.
I agree. I've had some interesting moments.
Yeah, I was gonna, since we're talking about DNA and stuff like that, I have a couple of theories that my brain always goes through about this specifically. I think we'll probably all three agree that I feel we'll all agree that we believe we have amnesia, which could be the dormant DNA, right? I believe dormant DNA is memory. So it's like we're only rocking so much memory at the moment. And so as, let's say, you raise your consciousness or that the vibratory rate of it, or perspective, let's say, I'm not trying to do a hierarchy thing, but as you pan out, you start turning on these other DNA strands or pieces of them, and then you start having bleed through. Is this the beginning of remembering within the incarnation what your altruism is? And because if you turn it all at once, you might have a schism or blow up the avatar, So then it comes down to this, like, was this intentionally programmed? To me, I have to believe it was intentionally programmed from us on a higher level, because I think the whole thing is just one thing checking itself out and split up into fractals. But then there's the other idea that there's the alien portion of it that came and turned it off so we could just worship it. I guess get back to that.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you for tuning into Fearless. We're going to have a little commercial break. We're going to come back up, and we're going to just go deeper and deeper down the crazy rabbit hole. Just for your protection from deception. What we do.
Spiral out.
Just spiral out, baby.
This is Truth Frequency Radio.
No hate, no hype, no fear. Real people, real radio.
Am I awake or is this a dream? A fantasy where I'd rather be. So come and talk with me. Come and walk with me. Is this a wake-up call from my reality? Have you seen my friends? Have you seen my girl? Wake me up from this. I'm trapped in this world. Thought you were alive until you felt my pain.
Yo, what's up? We are back with Fearless. My name is Frank Castle. I'm here with Rob. I'm here with Josh. I'm here with Paula. All right. Usually at the start of the show, I like to give my quick shout-outs to everybody in the chat room. We love you guys so much.
And like to say hi.
I love you.
To Chris and Cherie Gio from Beyond the Veil, coming on right after the show.
Yeah, I got to apologize to them too, because I was supposed to be on their show last night, and I had done my show before that. I had done 2 readings and then worked a full day work. I just couldn't stay awake, man. I was supposed to do 2 hours with them.
I was waiting for you in the 3rd hour.
Dude, they had asked me last minute, and I was like, told them I would do it, but I just couldn't. And then, my wife here, everybody was like tired of me being on the radio all night and doing everything. I just couldn't do it. I fell asleep too.
Rob, give shameless plugs and promotions to us. Tell us where we could find you. Tell us about where we can find your music.
Yeah, you can find everything at themysticalspiral.com is my website. On YouTube, I'm exploring the Ka with Ra. And my show Spiral Radio is on Friday nights on paraxradionetwork.com. But yeah, like I said, everything is you can find at themysticalspiral.com. I do psychic readings, dream interpretation, everything there too as well. So if you wanted to email me, it's moontribe712@hotmail.
This is so epic. You feel like the great minds are beginning to come together?
I do. I think that we all, like your friend Josh was saying earlier, and my website is all, if you look, I talk about how the junk DNA and how dormant DNA. It's like one of my main things to talk about, and like Josh was saying, I believe that we are coming into this world with amnesia, and we we've been hijacked in a way. So when we come in, we have all of these abilities, and our true spiritual purpose to be here, our spiritual mission that I feel that we've all agreed to prior to coming, we have forgotten. We don't know. So to awaken that, and to remember that, you usually have to get pushed down the spiritual path in some way or another, or your back has to be against the wall, or some kind of event has to take place for you to start to remember, and you catch a glimpse. And then once you do catch a glimpse, there are certain forces that try to make you forget as soon as you remember. So it's like a constant battle between that light and dark, always.
I agree. I agree with that 100%. Again, a lot of what you say, you're making the hairs on my arms stand up, because I agree 100% with you.
Yeah, no, good.
Sorry to interrupt, but to get back to Raw, what we were talking about right before the break came in, there's a couple of, my brain goes through about 3 or 4 things about what I think about of the DNA being turned on and off in the memory lab, or the amnesia, and the ascension, descension, or the incarnation, or the turning down of frequency, or the turning off of consciousness. So my brain goes like this. Okay, so there's this idea that there could have been the Anunnaki, that I don't know which version, because that means from the heavens came beings from Sirius or Orion or whatever, genetically messed with the humanoid. So when we incarnated into form, we don't remember your divine nature, which means you don't remember you're doing it. So you get led around, and you get kind of tricked into doing things or creating things by taking on certain belief systems. And then there's the other idea that literally we totally know this. Like this is almost like we've hired these certain beings to play the bad guy, let's say, since from the angle of the all is one, one is all perspective of it's one infinite consciousness checking itself out. We hire these versions of ourselves, let's say the light disguised the dark, hypothetically, and we say, okay, you're going to play this role, and then I'm going to turn off the hardest game. Let's call it the Earth game. I think this is the master game for some reason. Like, this is the hardest one, because you don't know, and you have to act as if, you encounter yourself everywhere. You encounter the mirror, and I'm not saying they're all good versions, or you got to love it like in a way where we got to hug, but you accept its reality. So is the idea that I feel all of these things, all 4 things that I just said, are actually all occurring at once, and you constantly, and you constantly have to pan out of that and go okay, it's cool, but if I say it's just that or just that, I fall into a victim state and feel like I can't pan out of those ideas and just focus on another one. So I feel like what's occurring is that we're being forced to disfocus on all those things over and over until you realize it's you, and then all of a sudden you hit that next level, like we've all watched our consciousness change over the last 10 years, where all of a sudden I'm like, wow, I don't think like I did 2 years ago at all. Like, that doesn't work. And now we're kind of retracting back to a point where you can just see all the belief systems that you're throwing into place until you go, okay, I can see all that. And then there's another click that occurs. Like, I feel like that's going on infinitely. Maybe.
Yeah, but what Frank was saying too, I think that it's not just that great minds are meeting, we're actually meeting our soul family. We're meeting people that we agreed to come meet, and then we're finding them. And I think that there's several 100,000, if not 100. They say 144,000 have come here, and I don't think it's the 144,000 have come here to be raptured and some kind of thing like that. I think there's 144,000 spiritual soldiers that have come here to take this plane back, and we're starting to meet one another, and that's why we feel like, oh my God, I know this guy from somewhere. Oh my God, and it's just because we're a family. We are genetic ancestors, and we made a pact and a contract to come here now and to be here at this place and time, and we're meeting each other in these other ways, and it's actually amazing, because I think we're actually given amnesia for this deliberate reason, so we wouldn't find each other, so we wouldn't remember. And then when we do, through our own ways, it's baffling to the system, and it throws it out of whack. And that's why they put extra attention on the certain ones to help them forget, to help them keep them down. They'll put them in dysfunctional families. They'll give them drug addictions. They'll give them this. They'll give them that. So they get preoccupied and their spirit and their souls not working on their true mission, and they're preoccupied with all this physical plane desires and addictions and problems. And then I think that's why it's all happening.
Yeah, no, I'm totally in agreement with that as well. I'm like, when you come to the 144,000, it's like being able to eventually hold a belief system to get out of our old false belief systems that have been like imposed by what quote unquote has been called like the false idols of reality, where you're like, none of this is real. This is just fake stuff set up to make you focus on everything but yourself. Yeah. So you can't see through the quote unquote illusions that are being created to keep you in lower forms of reality, that you don't recognize your own perspective of things. You just are led by the others that you're being bombarded with constantly. So is it the idea too that it takes 144,000 to actually change, to hold a belief system to change the paradigm, right?
Well, look, when I went under my ayahuasca session, right, they were like showing me you, Josh, right? And they were like, Josh is a punk rock drummer. How does Frank feel about that? And I'm like, who just said that? Right? I don't even know what's going on. And then they're like, Frank, does Frank even like punk rock? I think he hates punk rock. Look, make Frank
punk rock like the Clash, or punk rock like Pennywise?
The stuff I like, I would say, yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't want to say either of those bands because they're not really influences, but more stuff that's coming from your heart that's pretty aggressive. Usually there's some math. Yeah, Descendants, but there's aggressive pop.
Ted Kennedy's and stuff like that.
Sure, stuff like that. But also stuff that kind of verges on a little bit of the metal edge, but isn't what we would call too anal, where you're like you're not rad. You're like, you're just not being
so
rad.
The point is they make that's Josh, right? So I'm sitting here like, yeah, that's Josh, right? But it's not even his name. Like, that's my buddy, that's my brother, right? And then I'm like, but I hate punk rock. And they're like, and Frank's a white rapper. Yes. But he's a blueberry inspector with the USDA. And if they'll ever meet, they'll want to punch each other because they'll hate each other, right? So what happens? We meet finally through the weirdest of circumstances, and we don't even talk about music.
Oh, yeah.
Like, we both knew what each other did in our respective music career. But I was shown this, and I was like, wait a second. So you guys are dressing us up with whatever, with our free will, we pull stuff in, like you were saying, drug addictions or habits or different things. And then we're standing in the circle with our brothers and sisters, and we're avoiding them or beating them up or, choosing a side against them. But that's not happening now, Ra. You were talking, and I almost cried. Paul was watching me. The hairs on my arms went straight up. And I felt like someone walked over me. Like a giant man walked over me and was like, yo, it's us returning to each other.
Yeah, dude. And you know what? I've been in my 40 years on this planet, I've been through almost everything. I've been through having money, being without money, being in jail, being in a rehab, being on the street, being, having a family, not having a family, losing my mom, going through college, I've been at the top of the heap, traveling with a band, everything from drug addiction to being on top of the world, and so like I've experienced the highs and the lows of this physical plane, and for me to be here now and to find others like you is a true miracle, and to be able to share my experiences and find my soul family is remarkable. That we're standing here, on the frickin' front line as these star soldiers trying to defend our humanity and our spiritual evolution as humanity.
All right. I want everybody to hear what he just said and how he said it, right? If you don't feel that, you're not in the right frequency, because this is all heart. This is really happening. We're all returning. We're waking up. Gina, my friend Gina, calls us the shock troops. They're like, they had to send us. We're the only ones that had the balls big enough to do this job. Nobody wants to do this. Then I go under and I meet, it was funny, Chris had went under and I went under separately, and I just didn't know we both went under, and we both wound up in front of Goddess Isis. I don't know how it happened or whatever. And we had heard the call and everything, and we were just standing there looking at each other. And I'm like, dude. And there was all these other characters around us. I'm like, why is not everybody else doing this? And they're like, no, nobody wants to, man.
Nobody wants to talk about it.
Nobody has to do this. Nobody. Right? So there's those that have layered themselves within the layers to talk to you, help you, try to wake you up, whatever. Nobody could actually do anything for you, though. And then showed us this task. And I was like, holy I had one of those moments. Now, let me ask you a question. You've tried ayahuasca?
Yeah, one time. But I did it in 2004, and I was on the borders of Peru and Brazil, and it was pretty intense. I mean, even the way I got money to go out there is a story in itself, and I don't even want to get into that now because it will take up too much time. But I went through a hard time in my life, and I thought I was going to go out there because I had family out there, and I was out there for a couple of months, and I decided I was going to have a life-changing event and do this. And just finding a shaman sometime to do it is an event in itself, because you could get robbed, you could get left for dead, you could get raped, all types of stuff. So they call it yahe, I think, too. It's they call it it's spelled YAGE. They were calling it, like something like that. And they told me a couple of days before that not to have sex or to eat certain foods and eat cheeses or all this kind of stuff. So I did that. And there was like a group of like 6 people. And, when it got dark, he just left us too. He went home to like go eat with his family or whatever he went to do. And he left us out there. And it's a jungle there. It's right on the Acre River. And
dude, that's frightening. Just knowing what I do all the time, right? And then knowing that's why I do it the way I do it. So I don't ever do that. Well,
I did get sick for a little while. I don't know if you get, but I did. I got nauseous, and when it really started to come upon me, I basically saw the vibrations of everything that I did. Every step that I take, I would see the ripples of it throughout the forest, and I would see like it moving up and moving down and like everything moving. There was like drops of water, and the water would hit. I would see like the echoes of the water throughout like space and time. I would feel it. And then what surrounded me in like a dull neon color, that's the best I could describe it, like a transparent dull neon, was these snakes. And they surrounded me, and they were like cobras 3 foot high, and they were hissing at me and telling me every lie I've ever told, everything wrong I've ever been done. They're all hissing at me. So I started running, and I'm running from these snakes, and my impression was they wanted to take my eyes. They wanted my eyes, and they wanted to eat my eyes. And so I'm running from them, and finally I come to a tree where like there was water dripping off the leaf or something, and that water turned into like a waterfall. And like the snakes surrounded me, and they had these red shaken eyes, and they were like red and shaking, and I felt like they wanted to eat my eyes. And I had to bathe inside that waterfall. And I was bathing all the insecurities I've ever had, anything wrong I've ever done. I was trying to bathe it off of me like I would freaking dirt, and I'm sitting there bathing in it. And then I like I kind of like shook out of it for a second, and I realized it's like just a little drop of water coming off the leaf that I was bathing in a waterfall a moment ago, and the snakes had disappeared. And at one time, like I thought I was gonna die during that experience. I explained it in a minute, but it was actually a long period of time, that experience. And like I was running from like skeletons that were chasing me and all types of things, that it was an instant confrontation with my soul. Anything I've ever done wrong. And if I didn't have any type of energy experience beforehand, or some kind of experience with mushrooms or acid, I probably might have not have made it out of that, because it was pretty deep.
Wow. So are you saying like when these snakes were around you, they were literally speaking back memories of things?
They knew everything I've ever done.
You felt guilty about?
Yeah, they knew everything I've ever done and said and did wrong, and they were hissing it at me.
It's like the worst Akashic record reading.
Yeah,
like,
and they surrounded me, and they had
these things from your Akash. You're like, oh man, that's not what I want to deal with right now.
Yeah,
dude, that's intense.
That's so that's crazy, but not really. It's awesome that you actually. I me ask you a question. How do you define when someone says to you, "I hear your experience, and then I want to go do this"?
Yeah, I mean that's the whole thing. Like, I don't know. Like
Heading
I did
down
it.
that path.
It
Yeah.
did help me heal in a way. It did help me heal. I don't recommend it to everyone. You know, it would matter to the individual because some people, like I said, it could be an event that you don't make it back from the same.
You
And
have to go through that.
You gotta want it, man.
All right.
you know?
I was going. It stopped being the way it used to be for me. It turned into a tool to actually get work done. But what you talked about, it's blowing my mind. I almost feel like you're in the room with me. The 144,000, right? I went under, and I'm like, how come it's not like it usually is when I'm under? It actually just feels like it's me. Like it's just an enhanced version of me. Where's the colors and the this? Like I can see with my third eye. And I'm like, where is, this and what's going on with that? And I'm witness to the stuff you're talking about. Like, yo, you guys are the 144,000. You're waking up. And then I'll get intercepted during the experience. And I tell Josh about reptilian experiences. I have a lot of people that I work with, and they'll have attachments, and then we'll remove them. And our family, you, Chris, there's a bunch of us. There's really a group of us that want that path. They remove it, then they become they remember that they're shaman to some degree. And then they're able to push that back so they can show the people around them without bragging or being hubristically, just living a life.
Yeah.
That you can, by example, that you can do this too. Like everything you're saying is resonating. Like they just started showing this stuff to me, like constantly. They're like, you guys are all from the future. You already did this.
yeah, but you know what that's called?
Didn't...
That's called what I call a spirit rider. And it actually first goes into your energetic bodies, and then it attaches itself to your physical body and your spine, and it works its way up to your brainstem. And it does this technology that in my shamanic lineage that they call fetching. Well, they'll fetch ancestral knowledge, and they'll show it to you in different ways, different memories, and it'll go back from the ancestral realm until this mortal one, and it'll leave from time to time to pick up more ancestral memories, and it'll bring it back into your mortal realm, and it'll bring it. And if somebody doesn't have any kind of energy work or alignment practice, they can think they're going psychotic. It can make them feel like they're going crazy. It's sort of like the Kundalini. It travels up your spine, and then it hits that back of the brainstem, the oldest part of you, that impulsive part of you, that reptilian part of you, and it hits that part of you. So some people, if they don't know what's going on, they totally, they think they're going psychotic. But it can do what we call that fetching, and it fetches ancestral knowledge, and it will bring it to your brain.
I've sent my snakes after my Kundalini, like I witnessed it live. Like, so I watched it occur, like as I'm laying in my body, the snakes came up from my feet, started eating a layer out of me of darkness. And they said, do you want this? Because this is going to happen whether you like it or not. And
it's the vision serpent.
My dude, these things were eating, and it was the most scariest thing I've ever seen, but it felt awesome. Right? So when they got to my face, I'm like, oh, these things are going to eat my face. And then they came up out of the back of my neck. And then when I ask for them, they come out of my hands, one out of each hand, and they fetch stuff from me, or they do whatever. Sometimes I don't know what they're doing, honestly, dude. I'll watch them wrap around someone, and then chakras start going off in the people. Right?
Yeah, well, the Mayans call that the vision serpent, man. It's called the spirit rider or the mind rider. It's sort of like an ancestral. It comes from the ancestral realm to this mortal realm, and I think that's amazing that you're experiencing that, and that you have remembrance of it.
We do this. This is a constant. This is something's happening here. It's almost like we portaled up or something. Chris and I go back and forth about certain things, about the entities and the beings that we run into, and I know that some of them are like you unlock it in you, so you'll view it maybe externally, but it's really coming from you, and then it becomes you. Like you hang out, you almost see Shiva all the time for a certain period of time. Then when you've learned all this knowledge, it's like he becomes you, and you're him. Like you've gained that knowledge. But there's also characters that step right in, and they're just like, hey, look at this. Hey, check this out. And I judge them by what they're doing. what what do you want? Who are you? And they're like, no, it's you. Like, we're here for you, man. And I'm like, okay. They're like, 23 different genetic experiments are in you. You're the mutt, the true Israel, not the fake stuff. They're like, you have it all in you. You, the people that are seeing certain things, they're like, you're activating live. And you can see us. It used to look scary. I used to look up and they were giants. Like, it was freaky. It was like being in a weird cartoon video game, and it was very scary. And then I just said, you know what? This is BS. And all of a sudden, they just eye to eye with me. And they're like, you have to come up here to us. We can't keep coming down there to your vibration and your density. It's too thick, and it's nasty. And I'm like, wait a second. I've done this already. They're like, yes, we can't just release who you are. And I'm like, it doesn't matter who I am. I'm the I am we are. Right? You sent us. You asked. You called. We came. I feel like a Ghostbuster sometimes, my dude. It's we came, we saw, we kicked ass. You know, that's us. Yep. I had 8 people in a room once. Everyone had an attachment, and we just went to work. And everyone in the room that was waking up just went to work on the person next to them. And we were like, oh, dudes were passing out, and then looking up, seeing us there, and then their friend who just went under ayahuasca sitting there like, no, you got to just touch his heart and do this. Boom, kid activates. Just sits up. He's like, whoa, full activation, all the chakras, you know. There's something big happening, and we're all here warning the world or leading the world. I'm not warning anymore. Like, I'm not forcing this down anyone's throat. You're listening because you're one of us, or you're on that path. This is scary, man.
Well, think about this, like the idea
scary
that
good.
Different, you know, we're probably all here in our 40s, right? But we're talking about this like we'd be
43.
Like
injured healer,
but we're talking about this like we would be when we're 15. That energy, you know what I mean?
Well, we're reverting,
yeah.
You know, of course, because you're stoked. Like I mean, spiritually, you get that spiritual, like, oh, this is rad. Like, this is. I've always thought reality was really, like, there's this idea to keep you thinking that reality is boring, right? It's like, brilliant. That's the magic spell, like the dullification of your own consciousness to be like, nah, nothing's going on. It's like, nothing's going on. You're floating in space on a planet. Whoa, what's happening here? You know, like, first, let's start there. Like, what do you mean nothing's going on? Pan out of the sidewalk and the job and all that.
Yeah, you can't even get into the realm thing.
No, because
you get a hold of the
you've
first
said this,
thing.
and I always think this is really funny, Frank. You're like, well, you can't just start saying certain things right away because then all of a sudden you're the crazy guy in the movie.
Yeah.
Or you're the crazy guy in that person's
UFO
movie
guy,
now.
They're like the Sasquatch guy's a dummy, and Frank's just plain crazy. Oh, and I'm like, what are you talking about? Sasquatch is there.
Yeah.
The aliens are there. The UFOs are there. I'm there. You're there. This character's there. They're all there. It's just how you access them.
Dude, right? Somebody said this when I was in Colorado recently. One of my wife's friends said, he goes, okay, so let me ask you, like, we were talking about stuff, and he's like, so Bigfoot. I was like, yeah, Bigfoot and lizards that fly UFOs and mantises and
children,
angels and leprechauns and unicorns, dude. Yeah, all of it, man.
Because everyone's rocking their own universal style.
Well, it's like, okay, so for
inside the weirdo grid, right?
For anything to exist, everything has to exist. Like, just in general, that has to be the rule. If not, nothing could exist in the first place. It would have been over. Because nothing's finite, so everything has to be there. So it's like, it's all there. Oh, Bigfoot's not real, but an alien's real. Oh, Bigfoot is real, but an angel's not. You know, it's like, it's all
hell
there.
Yeah. You know, every single person that's here tonight, when I first heard and or met them, even though I might have been a little off, something inside of me was so happy. And I want to thank every single one of you for being here. Ra, thank you so much. As we're going out, tell people where to find you, Ra.
Anytime, brother. And we should have you next week on my show on TFR. You can find me at themysticalspiral.com. You'll find everything there. And I appreciate it.
Ra, you are truly fearless, man. I love you, brother. And I'm so happy you're here with us. And I'm so happy we could have these conversations. And yes, I would love to do